Last year, powerful corporate interest groups actually stole a Supreme Court seat and handed it over to their hand-picked choice, Neil Gorsuch. Now those powerful corporate groups are about to use that seat to deal a devastating blow to hardworking teachers, firefighters, nurses, and police all across this country. On September 28th, the Supreme Court announced that it would hear a case called Janus versus AFSCME, Council 31. AFSCME 31 is a union representing public sector workers in Illinois. This case will determine whether the public sector unions that represent teachers and nurses and firefighters and police officers in states and cities across the country can collect fees from all the employees in the workplaces they represent. Many expect that Justice Gorsuch will deliver the deciding vote in that case, that he will force unions to represent employees who do not pay dues and, in doing so, cut off sustainable funding for public union organizing. Now, judges are supposed to be impartial, but there's no reason to expect that Justice Gorsuch is impartial in this case. On the afternoon of September 28th, the very same day that the Supreme Court announced that it would hear the Janus case, Justice Gorsuch attended a luncheon at the Trump International Hotel. And he didn't just attend an event at a hotel that makes money for the president. Nope. He gave the keynote speech for a right-wing group funded by one of the Koch brothers and by the Bradley Foundation. Billionaires and wealthy donors who are pumping money into the people behind the Janus case. It is no surprise that these rich guys want to break the backs of unions. After all, unions speak up, unions fight back, and unions call out billionaires who rig the system to favor themselves and to leave everyone else in the dirt. What's at stake in the Janus case is basic freedom. The freedom to build something strong and valuable. The freedom to have a real voice to speak out. The freedom to build a future that doesn't hang by a thread at the whim of a billionaire. And just as the Supreme Court decides to take up a decision that puts the freedom of millions of working people in jeopardy, Justice Gorsuch shows up as the star attraction in jeopardy. And just as the Supreme Court decides to take up a decision that puts the freedom of millions of working people in jeopardy, Justice Gorsuch shows up as the star attraction for a billionaire-sponsored outing to celebrate an organization that is sponsoring an operation to put workers' freedom on the chopping block. With this kind of brazen disregard for fairness and impartiality, it's no wonder that Gallup polls have found that fewer than half of all Americans approve of the way the Supreme Court is now handling its job. In a shameless decision to abandon even the appearance of neutrality, Justice Gorsuch makes it clear that he's on the attack against American unions and American workers. In the Trump administration, workers have been under repeated attack. Since taking office, President Trump has signed several laws sent to him by the Republican Congress, laws that directly undermine the wages, benefits, health, and safety of American workers. In just 10 months, they've rolled back rules designed to make sure that federal contractors don't cheat their workers out of hard-earned wages. They've delayed safety standards that keep workers from being exposed to lethal carcinogenic materials. They've given shady financial advisors more time to cheat hardworking Americans out of billions of dollars in retirement savings. And the list goes on. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the government in Washington is supposed to work for the people who sent us here. So why is it that the federal government seems to be working against the interests of 150 million Americans who work for a living? Well, there's one reason: money. Money slithers through Washington like a snake. Its influence is everywhere. There are obvious ways that we know about the campaign contributions from giant corporations and their armies of lawyers and lobbyists, but it's also the think tanks and the bought and paid for experts that are funded by shadowy money whose point of view seems always to help the rich and powerful get richer and more powerful. Powerful interests invested vast sums of money in electing President Trump. And with each of his anti-worker actions, their investments are paying off. Powerful interests also spent vast sums of money to push federal judges who will tilt our courts even further in favor of billionaires and big businesses. They did it when they spent millions of dollars to hold open a Supreme Court seat for over a year. They did it when they spent millions more to promote Neil Gorsuch to fill that seat. And now that the court is poised to deliver a massive blow to public sector unions and workers, their investment paying off big time. The stakes here couldn't be higher. Millions of teachers, nurses, firefighters, police officers are looking to the court for a fair hearing of the case, holding out hope that their freedom to come together and to stand up for themselves in the workplace, their freedom to fight for higher wages, their freedom to fight for more generous benefits, and their freedom to fight for a better future for themselves and their children will be preserved. Unless we make real change, working people are just going to get kicked again and again. And we can make change. We can make the change right here in Washington. We can stand up and fight for our democracy. And we can start by demanding that everyone in our government is accountable, including the President of the United States and the Supreme Court of the United States.